Hello and welcome to Stories That Shape Us. My name is Joanna Daniel. Usually on Stories That Shape Us, I talk about stories from our past and how they shape us, how those stories shape who we become as adults, how they shape our everyday lives, how they shape about how we think about ourselves, how we think people think about us, the kind of control that it gives people in our lives. But today I want to talk about the stories that are just out there, the ones that are in society, the ones that seem to be positive, but how they also can impact and shape how we think, how we see ourselves, how we think about ourselves, and how we interact with our problems or our traumas. So, have you seen a post going around on social media that says, "You're not responsible for your hurt, but you're responsible for the healing"? And though that is true that we're responsible for healing, the dependence on sometimes there are people who are dependent on, and you might see yourself in this, like you desire an apology. You just want the person who have hurt you to say, I did it, to acknowledge that they've done it, to apologize so that you can move on. And lots of people stay stuck because the person who have hurt you have to face that they've done it and acknowledge that they've done it. And sometimes people don't want to do that. And so they won't ever say, yes, I did it. I hurt you and I'm sorry. And so lots of people stay stuck. So, but what I want to talk about is how the responsibility, just how you have to carry the responsibility in such a gentle way, giving yourself a lot of grace and room to grow to acceptance. Because it's not as easy as, okay, this happened to me, it's my responsibility to heal. Although it is, I just feel that that conversation, there's a massive piece missing. And I want to talk about that piece in the next couple of minutes. The piece that is missing between awareness and acceptance, because we can be aware of something, we can acknowledge it, but then accepting it is a completely different journey. And even when we've accepted that, okay, I am aware that this thing has happened to me, I am aware that it wasn't my fault, I've fully comprehended now that it wasn't my fault, that what happened to me was against my will, I didn't participate in it, didn't okay it, shouldn't have happened. I can acknowledge that and I agree that it shouldn't. So that's awareness. The acceptance is, okay, so it's happened, it causes a lot of harm, it's impacted me in so many different ways. And though I know it wasn't my fault and I no longer blame myself, I now accept that I have to go and do the work of understanding it, develop coping strategies, learn my triggers around it, and learn how to apply them day by day. So that's that journey to healing that I'm talking about here. So we're accepting that, right? So I need to do that. Now, after acceptance, there's more work that needs to be done. There is the work of, so who am I going to get help from? Who are the people that I will ask for support in helping me to to walk this journey? Now that I've accepted this, who are the people that I'm going to ask to walk with me on this journey? What kind of people do I need? What kind of support do I need? What kind of help do I need? And where can I go get this kind of support and help? What do I need from the people that are in my immediate circle? Can they help me? And how much will it cost? That's a big thing for people, cost. So there is this, though we're responsible for the healing, if you have seen that and sometimes you have maybe beat yourself up, you've wrestled with that, you're saying, yes, I am responsible and I agree with that. But then doing the work is another phase of that acceptance of, yes, I'm going to heal. I've accepted that this has happened. I've accepted that it's impacting me in these ways. And even sometimes we have to learn the ways that it's impacting us. So say, for example, healing is layered. There's a lot of parts to healing. So there is one layer that is acceptance, the acknowledgement, and then there's another layer that, and I call this defining your core wound, identifying the defining story in your life. Because sometimes we can experience lots of different things, but there is one story that is the defining story that connects all the others together. And when we can find that defining story, it really does help to free us. that takes time to be able to find the story, defining story. It takes time, it takes coaching, lots of guidance to be able to find the defining story and to be able to sit with and work through the defining story. So there's no rushing through it, the defining story. There is no, okay, so now that I know that this is it, how do I move on? We have to understand, so which part of my life is this defining story touching? So say, for example, let's look at one layer could be the father that abused you, could be one layer. There's a lot of confusion around that. Somebody who was supposed to love me did this instead. Um, and one of the things that we wrestle with is the confusion of loving somebody who created so much harm. So that those are layers to understand, to mourn, to grieve, to heal, to to know when it's triggering, to know when that pattern is repeating in other relationships, whether it's your new romantic relationship or it's your parenting or your friendships, to know how that story, that defining story, is repeating itself in other areas of your life. Or it might be the narcissistic mother who was unloving and unkind. I mean, the narcissistic mother is never going to be loving and kind. But what happened with that type of confusion is that sometimes she might appear to be nice when she's love bombing. She might appear to be nice, but then other times she's not. That's confusing as well. So that's a defining story. So accepting that my father has hurt me, my mother has, they've both abandoned me, and my caregivers were not caring. You may have grown up in care, or different things may have happened to you. We can understand and we can accept, but then comes the work off. We can accept that the teacher was abusive and harmful, but then comes the work of understanding the harm that she created, that they created, understanding the impact of that harm, understanding the areas in my life where that harm is touching, and what kind of story have I told myself about that, and how has it shaped me into an individual? Because our stories shape us. Hence the name of the podcast. Our stories shape us. So, what we want to help you to do here is to find the story, the defining story, and be able to help to just notice areas in your life where that is impacting. So, once again, if part of your defining story was abandonment by father, the confusion around it, the loss of love, the grieving of not having a loving, caring father, the way that it might make you not trust people and not trust men, the way that it might make you not trust God or see him as a father, you're not able to call him that, the way you might not be able to connect with older men because of that, the way you might struggle with authority figures, so many areas. It's vast. The way it might make you parent your son, the way that it might make you interact as a parent, or your decision to not be one based on how your parents were. So there's so many layers to it. There's so many places that it can. So I want to encourage you, if you've seen that, if you're in that place of acceptance or acknowledgement, and you know that this is a journey, every journey takes one step at a time, one step at a time. We can't do it with more than a step at a time. I was telling my friend today a story about when I climbed this hill. We're going to try and do it again tomorrow, and how it was tiring for me. And my son, who is 16, nearly run over that high hill, right? And I was taking a few steps and I'd stop, I'd deep breathe, I'd look around, and I'd take another few steps and I'd stop and I'd deep breathe. I couldn't go at the pace that he could go. I had to take my time. But guess what? I got to the top, right? I got to the top. I take my pictures. I was really happy that I did. And I got back down. And I've done it again since. Still wasn't easy because I approached the hill from a different direction this time. And that took me 2 attempts. So now I've conquered the hill from 2 different directions. And our stories might be like that. It might seem like a hill that we've tried to tackle, we've gotten a part of the way, it's too hard, and we've turned back. But we're wanting to tackle it again. So we keep looking at the hill, knowing that we need to get to the top. But there's so many obstacles in our way. So acceptance is the first part of going, okay, this hill needs climbing. So now we might need a strategy to do it. We might need company, somebody to accompany us. We might need to stop regularly and take a break. If you're tackling that story, that defining story in your life, you've accepted and you're aware and you've tackled it, just know that it takes time. Be patient with yourself. Go at a pace that you can manage and offer yourself a lot of grace as you're going at that pace, especially in areas where you see this recreating, where you've done similar things and you've made mistakes and you're recreating and you're living some of the characteristics of the people who hurt you. Just know, offer yourself a lot of grace. Healing is a journey. It's not a destination. It's a journey. As you're walking that journey, you're changing, and you're no longer the person who made those mistakes. You're no longer the person who acted out and hurt. You're no longer the person who reacts in anger as opposed to allow yourself to feel the sadness. You're no longer the person who is afraid of failing. You're no longer the person whose success is holding back because you're afraid because of the things that were said to you. Just know that it's a journey, one step at a time. If you're on the journey, as I said, offer yourself a lot of grace and well done. If you've not started the journey yet, but you keep looking at that hill, you keep thinking, I know I need to tackle that hill, but I need a guide. I need a guide to tackle that hill. That's absolutely okay. And you're worthy of a guide, somebody who is able to walk with you. You might struggle to let anybody walk with you because you might feel, I understand it, I know it, I've accepted it. I don't know who I'll trust to walk with me. I'm not going to tell them, I'm just going to do this and take your time, offer yourself grace, go at a pace again that you can manage with whoever your guide is. Thank you for joining me in this episode of Stories That Shape Us. I hope you'll join me on the next story.